Oh, I don't know. Well, we'll probably. Hey there, everybody. Reggie Rivers and Dee Dee Chisholm with Bella Health and Wellness, and this is our first episode of Virtual Galas Demystified. Um, and so we know people are going to be joining us here in a minute, so we will kind of do some background conversation here at the very beginning. And this will be recorded, and you can watch it at any time. So, Dee Dee, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this conversation.
Oh, it's so fun to be here, Reggie, and just be here as you're starting this new offering for all of your people.
Yep, that's great. And it's funny, the night of your event, after we got done with it, and we're standing there and we're celebrating, and I just remember thinking, we need to talk to Dee Dee. We need to talk to you in front of a bunch of other people, because you have such insights about how all this stuff goes, and you have a unique perspective about how you approach these things.
Yeah, it was such a great night, and it was a fun moment thinking, wow, how did we get here? Like, how did this actually work? Right?
It was great. Well, as we're getting started and people are joining us, let's start off with some background to you. Can you tell us a little bit about Bella Health and Wellness?
Sure. So my daughter Abby and I were called to start this practice. We actually, our family did medical missions to the high Andes of Peru, and we had finished a super difficult mission, serving about 1,500 people that had mostly walked to get to us. And afterwards, we just really felt like we were being called to bring that kind of care back home, bring care that started really more with the heart and led with love. And so we came home and we talked to a lot of smart people. And 2 years later, after a lot of hard work, we were able to open our doors, which was 6 years ago, just this past December. And we started initially caring for women, but seriously, Reggie, within, maybe 6 months, we had guys saying, hey, will you just see me today, just for my sore throat? I won't tell anybody, but will you so what did I do to my back? And so we had guys who were just really saying, like, we want to be cared for here too. And our, Reggie, our office is a little different than your standard doctor's office. It's more comfortable. It feels super safe. And we do really try to lead with love. And that's from the person who answers the phone to the last person that you talk to. And so once we started adding guys, we did full family medicine. And here we are now, 12,000 patients later, and caring for people who have insurance, but caring for people who don't have insurance. And when you're taking on a practice that, first of all, is not going to be follow the same precepts of standard insurance, which is seeing people for about 7 to 9 minutes face to face, and you're going to give them the time to listen to them and hear what's going on, because honestly, a patient will ultimately tell you what you need to do if you just listen long enough. So when if you're going to follow that model and you're going to take care of people whether they have the money or not, pretty quickly you realize that you're going to need to raise money. And so we did file as a nonprofit right from the start, knowing that we were going to need to raise money and that would be a part of our model. And so that's what we've done. We can certainly make some money from the insurance and the people who can pay, but then we have to raise money and through the kindness of others, make up that difference.
That's great. Hey, well, I want to share. Anybody who has any comments to share with us, please just type those into the comments and we'll put them on the screen here. Thank you, Talene, for saying hello to Dee Dee and me. We appreciate your being here. Anyone has any questions? And so for clarity, we're going to get to a conversation about how Dee Dee was able to get more than $200,000 pre-committed for her first ever virtual gala that happened in December. And it's really pretty remarkable. And it's a kind of a funny story of how she got started on that. But before we get there, I want to just do a little bit of background so you understand who this organization is, how old it is, what she's doing, and all of that. So Dee Dee, you just told us you started this 6 years ago after a health trip in the Andes, and you wanted to bring that home here, and you knew you had to raise money. And so, how long have you been doing a gala as your or an annual gala as part of your fundraising effort?
Well, if we talk about a real gala, our first gala was 1 year ago with Reggie and his team. And prior to that, we did some more of summer, more casual events, more like a soiree type of thing, with comfortable shoes, maybe summer dresses, golf shirts kind of thing, versus country club sort of thing, versus having an event where you could have several hundred people that can engage on many different levels. And so we had hoped that we could, honestly, we had hoped we could get by with not having to ask for people for money all the time. But that's evidently just not the way it's meant to be for us. And so when we hit our 5-year anniversary a year ago, we felt like that was a time to go all out and do that black tie event that gets people super excited. And what we found was that people were craving an event that not only honored them, but also got them so super excited about what we were doing. And so from there, we realized, and we left that gala a year ago, and we sat down with our team, we sat down with our board, and they're like, oh my gosh, we have to do this again. And so now we are 2 galas under our belt, one in person and one virtual.
Yes. Okay. Again, anybody who has any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hey there, Mark Affman. We appreciate your being here with us. So you did your first ever gala, in-person gala, in 2019. 2020 hits. You have COVID-19. You don't have to do a gala. You don't have to pivot to a virtual gala. But you felt that you really needed to do that. Could you have just raised the money without having your virtual gala?
The answer is we could have raised some money, because I did raise money beforehand, and I did raise money even prior to going into the gala, kind of as a pre-committed money going into the gala. So I may have been able to raise some money, but I wouldn't have been able to raise a unified experience. I wouldn't have been able to raise a unified excitement, and I probably wouldn't. I'm certain I wouldn't have been able to leave an ongoing impression. What made our gala so great a year ago, with you guys and your team, and the way we went about that event, and making it so beautiful and entertaining and moving along. What made that so great is that people left our event saying, that was the best event that I've ever gone to. That was the best gala I've ever gone to. And what we wanted to really not only be able to raise money, because obviously that's really important. And coming off of 2020, like, we would have never expected the expenses that we were going to have, or the losses that we were going to incur. So we really did feel like we needed to do something, but we also wanted to give our attendees, our viewers, our participants an experience. And we wanted to leave them with something settled in their heart that lasted more than a single ask. So I feel like for us to choose that gala was just as much about blessing our participants or viewers or whatever you want to call them, as it was blessing us.
Yeah, and that's great. And you've always had that interesting perspective about. I think that you understand the gift that you have to give to your donors, not just the gifts that they have to give to you. That they they love your mission. They love the work that you're doing. They love the people that you're serving, and they want to participate in that in some way. They want to witness it. They want to experience it. And you have the ability and the opportunity to invite them in, to experience it, to hear in more detail what it is you're doing, the impact that you're having, why it's so effective, and get them re-inspired about why they supported you in the first place.
Right. Well, and I think that I think that that carries also the idea about people want to be a part of something, right? I think all of us want to feel not only that we belong, but also that we contribute in a significant way. I mean, when I talk with my patients that are super depressed or really struggling, oftentimes it's feeling like they don't really have a place, or they don't have any purpose, or that they have nothing to give. And but that's not just for someone with depression or going through issues. I feel like we are all wired to care for, to reach out, and to love somebody else. But also in that, I feel that our people, the people that I'm reaching out to, like, I authentically want to care about them. Like, I want to know how they're doing. I want to know what matters to them. I want someone, if someone is going to give me $25, or somebody's going to give me $25,000, I would hope that my genuine interest in them is equal in who
Right.
they are as a human being.
Right. That's great. All right. Well, let's get into that part of the conversation a little bit about how you had these conversations. And Talene posts a question: how did you get your donors pre-committed? Did you just start calling them? Did you send out emails? What did you do?
So that's a great question, Talene. And what I did is I actually, like, I looked at everyone who has given to us in the past, and and I also just really looked at my relationships with them, you know. And what I found was that anyone who had given to us in the past, or had given to us regularly, whether that was maybe $500 3 years ago, or 50,000 or $100,000. And I just looked at it, and I looked at my relationship with them. And so I started by thinking, when was the last time I talked to them? Because if the last time I talked to them was to ask them for money, then I was not going to ask them for money and the next time I talked to them.
Wow. Okay.
And so I really needed to start by kind of holding myself accountable in the relationships that I have with my benefactors. And so that was where I started. And so then I just started reaching out. First of all, giving people an email. How are you doing? Do you have a chance to get together? Interesting, on this year, people were really less apt to get together. So meeting with benefactors, which for those of our viewers may know that, a big part of our job and development is meeting with benefactors and letting them know how their dollars are impacting, or making an impact in our work, in our nonprofit, right? And so at this year in COVID, people actually were less apt. They didn't necessarily want to meet, but people were really, really open to emails, phone conversation, and text. But what I wanted to do was initially start by, how are you doing? What's going on in your life right now? And have you stayed healthy? Has your family stayed healthy? Are you guys all doing okay? And so those are where the conversation started, just like you would with reconnecting with a friend. And that's what I think is so important, because I really feel like each of our benefactors are friends, and I feel like I need to have a personal relationship with them. So so just starting out with checking in, and not actually even going anywhere where I'm at or what I need, just a straight up checking in.
Right.
And And the other thing too is I think that this is a good idea, regardless if you're having a first contact with a potential benefactor, new friend to your work or whatever. You never know who may actually be interested in what you're doing and what their work is. If I mean, when you're talking to a stranger, whether that's somebody on the plane, somebody in the grocery line, I mean, even though we're all 6 feet apart, it shouldn't keep us from conversations, right? And my husband is excellent about asking the second question. So rather than just leaving something with a "How are you?" listen to the answer and ask the next question. And listen to the answer and ask the next question. Because what we're demonstrating is a sincere interest in that person. But by doing that, we find out what their interests are.
Right.
And when we can find that commonality between their interests and what we're doing, that's when more relationship happens.
Yeah, no, that's great. I thought that as you were talking, I was thinking about my 17-year-old son and what we're always telling him, that he's 17, so he has a tendency to send messages that are like, "Can I have some money? Will you take me to the mall?" Just or you pick up the phone and you're like, "Hey, Malik, what's going on? Can I go to Julian's house?" And it's like, hold on a second. So now it's interesting when he's over the Christmas break where he has a girlfriend and he's texting with a girlfriend's mother, and he's like, "Hi, how are you doing? How's work going?" Um,
Exactly.
it's just these basic little instances of respect and being selfless and being interested in how people are doing, and it can be expressed in very simple ways. But I think that sometimes we forget when we're talking to donors that they want to be respected that way, just like everybody does, and we want to jump straight to, "Hey, the reason I'm calling you is because I want you to donate $10,000," and they're thinking, well, okay, have you asked me anything about when's the last time I talked to you?
Right, exactly. And and on that point, I mean, I feel like I do that a lot if I'm reaching out to a colleague or one of my staff or even my family or my mother or whatever. Like I'll jump in with a text or right into what I am, because I have these conversations going on in my head already. It seems like we've been talking, and actually we haven't been talking at all. So it's
Right.
really important. And I feel like one of the greatest disciplines that I feel like that I have put upon myself is, before I push send on a text or an email, I reread it. And I read, does this start with a respectful salutation, right? Am I just starting out by saying, "Hey, how are you?" Praying everything's going well for you or whatever, instead of jumping straight into, "Here's what my wish list is today," or whatever.
Right. Okay, let's shotgun a few of these. So Mike Reed asked, "How did you get so many people to attend your event?"
So we invited a lot so that we could get some, right? So I think that really, like even when you talk about a shotgun, right? Like throw that net so wide. And when we were having small events, we actually did target people that we were more confident would be giving, would appreciate the experience and stuff like that. When we were having the virtual event, like we threw it as wide as we could get it. I set a personal goal to try to have an attendee from all of the 50 states. And that was by talking to friends and family and who do you know where. And hey, because there's so many people who are interested. And gosh, if we're going to have 1,000 Facebook friends, then let's use those Facebook friends as friends and reach out to them and let them know what we're doing and get them excited about that. Have them feel like they can be a part. That is one of the hugest gifts to me about a virtual event, because we were able to bring so many people together when you're in a ballroom or whatever, you're much more limited. You're limited by locality or whatever. And in this instance, we were able to ask friends of friends, and we had although we were cautious in the time of COVID of, quote unquote, watch parties, we did have people, they may invite, two couples or something like that they felt comfortable in their home, but they also invited friends virtually and kind of had these little virtual times where they got together and they, had their drinks and they had their appetizers and they took that hour and participated, but then they could also chat between the two, between their little group of people and things that they were excited about. So I think that, really spreading it wide, not just with your business, but with the businesses of your businesses and the friends of your friends, and don't limit it by your own imagination, because we are too tiny in our heads. So, but if you can get so many other people's imaginations, and by talking to a few concrete people who are willing to also be your ambassadors, just like you would do in a what I would do in a real event, a live event, I would have ambassadors spread throughout the room so that they are speaking on my behalf. They're like planted ambassadors. In this case, I put ambassadors across the country.
Yeah, that's great. When we were talking about your goal, and you guys had set a big goal for this event, and you asked us how much of that do we think you should have pre-committed, and we said 60%. And I remember the look on your face was like, 60%. Tell us about that moment where you thought of that, but then what you did immediately after that.
So when you said 60%, and I am thinking, oh my, and I am certain that any of your executive directors and your development directors that are out there are going to understand what I'm saying. But you're thinking, I have so much work to do, that this event is a fraction of my life, of my job, of my work. In my case, I'm seeing patients. We're having tons of COVID patients. I'm seeing all kinds of patients out in the parking lot. And I'm trying to keep up with the state guidelines. And everybody, whatever it is, everybody has their story of all the stuff they have to do. And when the Gala team says 60%, and you just sink under the table and you think, maybe we shouldn't have a gala, right? I don't know that I can do this. And so, and then under the table, you're thinking, wow, we really need money. We better do this. So you get yourself back up and you straighten yourself out, and the meeting has ended with the Gala team. And that's when for me, I just started. Actually, I started with my last year's event. That's where I started. And I looked at my top people, because I figured I'm going to start. I'm not that I don't care about my little people, but I'm going to start with my top people, because they're going to have to think longer about that $100,000 or $50,000 or $25,000 gift than somebody who's thinking about, a $50 or $100 gift. So anyway, that's where I started, and that was when I immediately started reaching out. And the other thing too, in my case, and I think that there is a circumstance in different types of nonprofits, I have a circumstance where I can see people, whether that was at church or I'm seeing someone in my office. So I actually took any opportunity. If I was talking to someone and they were awake, then they were hearing about my event. So, I talked about how they are, what they're doing, and all that kind of stuff. But no one left being with me without knowing that I made little bitty cards for them to have just in their wallet, so that anybody could put it anywhere. Just a little square card about the Bella Ball, December 3rd, 2020. More info to come, or the website or whatever. So anybody got those? Many of them got many of them, because I wanted this to start being on people's minds. And Reggie, correct me, but I think that we were about 3 months out, maybe, were we more than 3 months when we started talking, maybe?
I think it's probably about 3 months. That sounds right.
Yeah. And so that's actually not a ton of time. So
Right.
I would really encourage anybody who's got longer than that, to be cultivating.
And
Make your
Lynn, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought Lynn has a good question that's kind of on the subject of what you're talking about. She said she's sorry if she missed it. How many people were on your virtual event?
I think that at our peak, I'm trying to remember for sure, but I think at our peak we were around 500. It's interesting because when you look at the scales of how it goes, there are times where we had a whole bunch of people at the beginning. Some people came off, some people came back on. So it was at the peak, I think, that we had about 500.
Okay. And then Leslie Cooper Pollard wonders, so you did your event on December 3rd. How did that affect your Colorado Gives donations?
So that's a great question. Because of how ours fell, we did, I think, if I'm remembering, that Colorado Gives was maybe
I think the next week.
I think it was the next week. And we just did it for us. We didn't push it. We still were out there, and we did actually get $20,000 on Colorado Gives. I think it was just kind of some momentum that was going. But we didn't feel like we could push those two events close together.
Right. Great. Okay. And Talene had asked a long question. I'm going to see if a long question will show up. Oh, yeah. So you have pre-committed donations. And by the way, you got more than $200,000 pre-committed, and then ended up raising a total of about $350,000. Was that correct?
Right.
Yeah. So,
actually, no, I think we ultimately hit 400,000.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Right.
So that's just an interesting aside. I'm going to come back to Talene's question. So on the night of, I think we were right around 300,000. Then before we left the studio, you got a call from the people who were back at your office who were taking donations on the phone. They had raised about 50,000. And so now you're saying that after that, from the time that we left, you got another 50,000 that came in.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Okay. So back to Talene's question. You get these pre-committed donations, and do you share them as part of well, actually, I know the answer to this. Yes, we do share them as part of the fundraising total on that night. But how do you think that those pre-commitments affected or created the momentum for the donations you got that evening?
The great thing about the pre-committed donations is that with our large donations, 50,000, 20,000, 25,000, 10,000, with those donations, our benefactors actually said, use those to your benefit however it works best. So as a match, or add those, they were okay with us putting it in at any any time that it seemed like the best thing to keep the momentum going. And I know that you guys, Reggie, and your team helped us to figure out, when do we want to add this, or here we have this, let's bring in this match or whatever. And so that was great, because our benefactors were very generous on the how we were going to use those dollars.
That's awesome. And Mike says, great tip on handing out small cards that had the Bill of Ball logo, the event date, and the time. That's a great takeaway. Mountain Area Land Trust, Linda, hello there. Super impressive. Lots of great work. Mountain Area Land Trust is another group that did a great job of getting pre-commitments. I think that they were at like 70% of their goal before they started that night. And when that happens, it takes a lot of the pressure off. Like there's a lot of stress around, is this going to work? Are people going to show up? And if you know you have this money already banked, it takes a lot of the pressure off.
It does. It's interesting because your first milestone to kind of relieve some of that pressure is, have I paid for my event? Right. So have I paid for the production studio? Have I paid for the gala team? Have I paid for all of the costs that we have incurred in printing or whatever? So when you hit that, in our case, that was $50,000. For our special moment in our video and all that kind of stuff. So for us, that was $50,000. So when we hit that $50,000, we're like, okay, at least we're not losing money. Right. But what we really needed to get going was talking with, getting people to actually commit. And so remember, I started with the calls and talking with people, seeing how they are, trying to definitely saw people in the office, because oftentimes I'd call people and they're like, gosh, Dee Dee, maybe I should come into the office, and see you for whatever, hormones or whatever. And so, and I do get a captive audience when I'm, doing bioidentical hormones and placing, inserting pellets, because I have them captive while I'm doing the procedure.
Before any anesthesia, you get them.
No. I want to numb them up well. I want them super happy while I'm taking care of them. But then I have a captive audience for probably 20 minutes. And we're gonna talk about it. But a lot of these times are, so after I've reached out to them and I'm kind of reopening the door, because then people are saying, let me know what I can do to help. So after that first kind of how they're doing, they're asking me how I'm doing. We're going at it hard, taking care of COVID patients. We've got our regular patients. I've got my abortion-minded patients that I'm trying to take care of. And they're leaving that conversation. And this is, most people will leave that kind of conversation saying, how can I help? Right. So I think the most important thing is to say, I need your help. Thank you so much. So leaving them with a little bit of a task. So how can I help? That initial thing is going to be, that initial answer for me is, I am definitely going to, we are definitely going to need your financial support. However, like what I need right now, when we're a few months out, is will you start sharing with your friends that we're going to be doing this? I can send you some little cards and you can share them with your friends. So I charged people right away with how they could help, how they could pray for our event and have it on their mind. You ask someone to pray for your event every day, they're going to remember your event.
Right.
So, for me, since that's something that very naturally falls out of my mouth, people do remember. And so, even if you ask people, if you can be thinking about ways I can do this better, if you can get back to me on what you would love to hear.
Right.
So that's also giving some people some ownership in what you're doing. So then I followed up after I talked with people on the phone with a text, hope you're doing well today. Been thinking about whatever they've been going through. Please know you're on my mind, that kind of thing, in my prayers, whatever. Then I actually sent I sent a pretty vulnerable email. When we were getting, so we're probably maybe 6 weeks out. So if I've already reached, I really think that you need to have in your mind to have some sort of a touch at least 3 times. And so by the time I'm getting to that, I'm sending a very vulnerable email. I'm trying to make this email very personal because, again, remember, people aren't wanting to meet right now. And people are less offended with that lack of personal face-to-face touch right now. And I actually think we're going to see more of that. So I think this is a message that can go on. But I sent a very personal email that started with, how are you doing? And then I specifically recalled whatever it was that we have connected on. Maybe that's their children. Maybe we had a dinner canceled because of COVID. Maybe somebody's mother died, or We had that time when we were traveling, when we caught up together, just having some special memories of us together. And then I went into, this is what this year has looked like for me. And I talked about how, in this particular year, in the year of COVID, I talked about COVID. If it was not COVID, I guarantee you, any one of us would say there's always something, right? There's always something. There are always stories that are compelling for us to bring a need to someone who wants to participate. So I just went deep into where we were at. In the midst of where we're at, I got vulnerable about how that has been for me in my situation, because as the co-founder of Bella, and having been in that lead role of doing everything, seeing patients and running the business, on this particular year for me, I had hired a COO. We restructured our senior leadership and moved me from an executive director position into a CEO position, and brought in a COO as president. So I could share personally and vulnerably what it was like to take this mission that we were doing, that I feel very personal about, and what that felt like to start letting go, to let go of the business, to be in an incredibly vulnerable time in COVID, incredibly vulnerable time, with all the financial needs with COVID, but what that meant to me personally, and how I was appealing to them and letting them know, just as I care about them as a personal human being, letting them know that I realize that they care about me as a human being, that it's not just about Bella, and they are not just about their checkbook, but that we are a human being dealing with a human being. And that so that we could have just a more personal connection. And then I went into, what does this mean in terms of dollars? And what does this mean for us to continue doing the work that we're doing, especially at the level that we're doing it, to continue to provide excellent healthcare that leads with love for everyone, without any kind of exception of their finances, their race, their religion, anything, that we embrace all, and that we have this very beautiful, diverse, safe place for people to come. And then I ended with just saying, our needs are huge. And I know many people have huge needs right now. And I didn't ask people for a dollar amount individually. I just said, our needs are very big, as are others. And I am asking you to prayerfully consider how you may support us, so that we can continue doing what we're doing. And in that, I got really, really good response.
That's wonderful. And the thread that runs through every story that you've told today is a sincere connection. That
Right.
These donors, they're not ATM machines. You don't just walk up and push their emotional buttons and make a withdrawal. It is a relationship. You maintain this relationship. When you're reaching out, you're thinking about the things that you have in common with them, the personal things that you have in common with them. You're thinking about their personal priorities, their family, their lives. They see you as a person. You see them as a person. That these two people now have a shared mission to support Bella and the people that Bella supports. And so I think that this has been very powerful. I think that you're a great example of the power of asking in philanthropy, that we get so afraid to ask sometimes, but we forget that the donors want to be asked. They want to be a part of this. They want to understand. And it's just really important for us to be as sincere as we possibly can in maintaining these relationships.
Right. And never, ever, ever put someone's checkbook before the person themselves, because they'll know it.
Right. Right. Dee Dee Chisholm with Bella Health and Wellness. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. Thank you, all of you who tuned in and asked questions and made comments. We appreciate you. And this is the first episode of a series trying to demystify virtual galas and to talk with people who have had an experience and can share with the rest of us an approach to doing something that's difficult. Asking for money and raising money is not easy, but it's also not impossible. And Dee Dee is a great example of how you can just go about it and crush it.
Thank you so much, Reggie. Thanks everybody for participating.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.